My name is Hélène, as Fabrice told you, and I've been working in tech for 13, maybe 14 years. So based on France average, I'm one of the oldies in the ecosystem. And I think that comes with some wisdom. That's probably why LPC asked me to come and talk to you about what it means to be responsible in product. But before we dig into that, I would like to give you a quick overview of my background. Because as Fabrice, I am average. I'm not perfect, I'm not an example, and I want to show you through my background that going into impact and responsible product is possible. This is me 15 years ago. I was a student in a business school, and my ambition at this time was to do some marketing at Coca-Cola or L'Oréal. I even considered working at BMW. So much for being responsible. 15 years later, I turned into what I define as a conscious product manager. I understood my responsibility quite late, actually. I discovered them when I joined Brigade, which is a company aiming to make work attractive and accessible to all through a better empowerment of people in the hospitality and healthcare industries. I joined the company just a few months before COVID. Quite bad timing. But if I'm being really honest, the pandemic was probably the best thing that happened to me. Don't get me wrong, I'm not asking for a new one. We suffered enough. But I remember of one time in particular. The company at this time was operating only in the hospitality industry. So in 24 hours, we lost 90% of our turnover. We were having an emergency meeting with the entire company on Slack, and the discussion was surprisingly not about how we could save the company. We all knew, because we were working in tech, that if the company had to die, we will all find a new job quite easily. Well, it was back in 2020. It's a bit different now. No, the discussion we had was about how we could actually save our users. Those people were self-employed bartenders, waiters, chefs, people with passion for the industry. And if you remember well, in March 2020, the hospitality industry was completely shut down with undefined limitation. So what we were focusing on was how we could actually help those people through our product to pay their bill. I stayed within the company for a little less than 5 years. I left a few months ago. And during all this time, my focus stayed on how can I use my skills, what I've learned, to actually make a change and help the company and the society become a little bit better. So my responsibility hit me hard during COVID. And that's why, almost a year and a half ago, I decided to create content about the social impact of our products, talk about it, and even decided at some point to turn into freelancing so that I could help other companies have a better social impact. I know that some of you might be skeptical about the fact that we can actually have a social impact when we do business, especially in tech. I was skeptical too. But today I am convinced that not being responsible is not an option. So this talk is about proving you, I, all of us, need to grow up and take our responsibilities. How will this go? I will start with going a little bit into what it really means to be responsible, what is behind responsible product and product with an impact. And I will also talk a little bit about ethics. Then I will dive into the real things, the challenges we are collectively facing, and why it is that important that we make a change in the way we do our jobs, despite the reality of our industry at the moment. Last, I would ask you to face your individual responsibilities. And no, definitely not, your corporate environment is not an excuse not to act. But as I am a nice girl, or at least I try to be, people who know me will tell you, I will also try to give you some actionable advice so that you can actually become more responsible. I hope you are ready. Let's go. So, when we talk about responsible product and product with an impact, what do we really mean by that? I make a clear distinction between the two. A responsible product is a website, an app, a platform, whatever form of digital device or website that aims to reduce its negative impact on the environment, the society, and the people. On the other hand, a product with a social impact is a product that was specifically created to address a social issue. It can be related to the environment, access to work, access to education, healthcare, women's rights, you name it. But what is important is that responsible products and products with an impact are not exclusive, nor are they a prerequisite for one another. A product with a social impact is not responsible by design, unless you make it. You can have a product that is willing to address a social issue, but does it the wrong way. On the other hand, any product that was solely created on a business purpose can also be responsible, because the team working on it cares about their social impact. But why is it that important that we care about the impact of our products on the environmental and social scale? Well, as Mike Monteiro said, when we talk about digital products, given the extent of the use, when we screw up, we're not just breaking code, we are breaking people, and the same goes for the planet. That's what we put behind the notion of responsible product, a product that is, that's the first blank, sorry about that. A product that is caring for the environment, looking about user privacy, economically balanced, transparent, and so on. So now that we all agree, or at least I showed you what I think it is, I would like you to take 10 seconds to think about the last time you did something for your product to be responsible. Take this time. I will really shut up during these 10 seconds. If you can't find anything, don't blame yourself. We've not been trained, we've not been pushed to care for the planet and the environment. Not yet, not enough. We have plenty of books, frameworks, methods that help us maximize our business impact. Even when we talk about user centricity, what we really talk about is how we could better address the user needs to increase the added value, to engage them in the long run for a better profitability. Don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you that profitability is an issue. We need to find growth and revenue, especially in this time. But I think it is about time that we have a more critical look at the books, the methods, and the frameworks. I think it is about time that we take a big breeze and face the reality. We are not only creating solutions to problems, we are also creating new problems. But the good thing is that we are pretty good at solving them. I've been reading a lot about ethics lately. I think I'm even becoming some kind of a philosophy nerd. If there are others in the room, we can talk after that. Of course, you won't have Aristotle, Socrates, or Plato talking at LPC or at Lenny's podcast, unfortunately. But there is so much we can actually learn from these oldies. Because product is not about tech. Product is not about marketing. To be honest, it's not even about business. Product is about how we address people's needs, maximizing happiness while minimizing harm. Does this ring a bell? This is the principle of utilitarianism, one of the most important frameworks in ethics. If you need a more concrete one, or you're not used to utilitarianism, think about deontological ethics. Caring about the user privacy, consent, transparency, non-addictive products, those are rules you can actually follow, ethical rules you can follow, so that your product is a little bit more responsible. You see, when we talk about ethics, and when we talk about responsible products, innovating is not really innovating. It's just applying all things to a new playground. A playground with the impact of the largest scale ever in history. So we cannot really screw up. A product that is created in a remote city in a really small country can at some point be used by millions of people. and can impact the lives of millions of others. Still, we assess the success of a company by the million raised. All the KPI we use on a daily basis are almost exclusively linked to business. We had to wait until 2024 for an organization to actually create an index based on the impact, the social impact of companies. You still have to negotiate to have the right to make your product more responsible. And to be honest, we all worry about how quickly a user can access a cat video. We don't worry about the energy consumption needed for this video to be accessible on 4K instantly. The world is not fucked up. We fucked up the world. So I think it's time we act. Have you ever heard of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development? You might be more used to hear about the 17 Goals for Sustainable Development, the ODD in French. In 2015, the United Nations listed 17 goals to achieve, by 2030, sustainable development in 3 dimensions: economic, social, environmental. Let's be honest, we won't make it. The world is probably in worse shape now than it was 9 years ago. But I don't want to take you down, especially not after lunch, and I think there is still hope. A few weeks ago, I was talking to Amandine Dur, the CPO of Back Market, who's maybe in the room, and I was asking her why she thinks this is an individual duty to act more responsibly when we design and develop products. Amandine thinks that we will progress exponentially in the fight against climate change and other major causes when the effort shifts more to civil society and private companies. She thinks so, and I agree with her, because in a capitalist system, this is where the driving forces and the impetus for large-scale movement are found. But I know what you will tell me. Hélène, sweet, sweet Hélène, we are just product people. Agree to disagree. No, we are not just product people. Working in product means knowing how to act and influence an organization. It means knowing how to move the needle by showing through data or user research that there is another way to do business, a better way. And this is the second blank. I'm getting better at this. If you are a product leader, you have an even bigger role to play here, because you are able, if you play your card well, to both convince the people deciding and influence the team actually building the product. But there is another truth. In the past year and a half, our industry has been kind of shaken up. This is the end of free magic money. This is the end of incredible fundraising, of rounds and rounds of hiring. We are back to what a company should have always been about, looking for profitability while addressing real customer needs. And I think that's actually a good thing. But don't get me wrong, it makes the case for ethics, responsibility, and impact even more difficult. Before, we used to talk about growth, hyper-growth even. When I was talking about responsibility with people, they were telling me things like, competitors are in the rear mirror. We need to be quick, efficient. We don't have time for sustainability. Or, we are innovating. We'll see how we can make it more responsible later. These are real quotes. I'm not making this up. What makes me sad is that even now, I still hear something that feels a bit similar. I hear things like, we are looking for profitability. We don't have time for responsibility. Or the focus is on making money. We will see how we can make it more sustainable later. Aren't you sick of excuses? Sure, the planet and the society can wait. Of course, we need to think about profitability. Of course, we need to find revenue and growth for our companies to grow, for our jobs to stay, for our product to be able to have an impact. I'm not saying anything else than that. But I think we are looking at responsibility the wrong way. Responsibility is not an obstacle. It can even be an opportunity. But in these times, you won't get easy access to time and money to make your product more responsible unless you give people the right arguments, unless you get a little bit creative, maybe even a bit sneaky. Product management is about finding simple solutions to complex problems. It's time we apply that to the way we do our jobs. It's time we look for opportunities at the crossroad of business and impact. Accessibility is probably the easiest thing to promote. In France only, 13% of people above 50 years old have at least one disability. This is 6.8 million people that your product is not addressing. I'm pretty sure some of them might benefit from your product and even pay for it. It can even open new markets. If you think about Deezer's audiobooks, it aims specifically to people with a disability by nature. Because yes, audiobooks are useful to people beyond the always busy entrepreneur doing his morning ritual, if you didn't know. All that to say that I'm 100% sure, that if you look around, you will find business opportunities in responsibility. But I know that a business case might not be enough to convince people. So let's talk about the cost of doing nothing. We can talk, for example, because we are really good at it in France and in Europe, about regulations, which can cost you really a big amount of money if you don't follow them. And the better thing to do is to anticipate those regulations. I like to take the example of the 3-click unsubscription rule that apply in France since 2023. I love this one because it applies to one of the user flows with the most dark pattern in it. And if you're not familiar with dark pattern or with the issue on unsubscription, just think about the last time you tried to unsubscribe from a service and ended up with an upgraded plan instead. It hurts. It happened to the best of us. Well, not following this rule in France can cost you up to 75,000 euros. But still, it might not be a good argument for your hierarchy. Because I know, because I've seen it firsthand, some companies prefer to pay the fine. So let's talk about the last opportunity. Oh. Yeah. Responsibility can even turn into a competitive advantage. Let's talk about the fact that more and more customers add sustainability criteria in their purchase. No matter if you work in B2B or B2C, this is becoming a reality. I've heard about big corporations including B Corp assessment criteria in their procurement process. And I think we have all seen the surveys about individual people selecting brands on the sustainability criteria more and more. This is not a trend. Your competitors won't wait to seize this opportunity. I think you shouldn't either. So I tried to give you some ways to convince people above you that investing in responsibility is a good thing, even a prerequisite at some point. But I think the most important person to convince is actually in this room. Is this you? Because, as Victor Papanek said, you are responsible for what you put into the world. In his book, Design for the Real World, Papanek was not talking to companies. He was talking directly to the individual designers. Of course, your company, the company you work for, has its responsibilities. It is responsible for what it puts in the market and how they do so. But you, as a person, are responsible for the way you do your job. Product people tend to be proud, even sometimes arrogant. I won't blame you. I am sometimes lacking some humility. But I think it is time that we stop asking to be credited for the impact we have only when it's convenient for us. I remember when people were telling that the product manager is the CEO of the product. I'm sure some of you still think so. Well, you can't have the cake and eat it. So this is your duty to act in a more responsible way when you design products. If your company doesn't have the guts to make the proper choices, if your company doesn't care at all for environment or society, you have two choices. You can either leave, which is a reasonable decision. I did it myself in the past, I won't blame you. Or you can stay and try to act from inside. Of course, this is not an easy journey. But if you want to put your skills at work and try to use them to create a better society, you can do it. And you shouldn't be waiting for permission to do so, because there is actually many things you can do without approval. The first thing you can do is to actually teach yourself about ethics and social sciences, about your impact on the environment. I think, and it won't please the sponsors outside, I think that today it is way more important to be able to really tell the good from the bad than to know how to use amplitude or how to properly prompt ChatGPT. Read Mike Montero's books, read Victor Papanek, download the incredible playbook crafted by climate product leaders on climate change, conscious product management. Participate in a fresque du numérique. Do whatever you can to understand the impact you can have and you already have on social and environmental scale. And from that, you will be able to slightly change the way you do your job. You actually don't need to be launching a new product or creating a new market like Deezer did with audiobooks to have an impact on your product. Think about the next redesign that you have planned for next semester on your product, or about the refactoring that your engineering team is doing next month. These are great opportunities to actually set some rules for sustainability in your product. And trust me, if you set those rules from the beginning and explain the benefit to your team, it won't get more complicated, it won't cost more, it won't take longer. If you work on a design system, for example, set some rules for accessibility. If you plan a review of the copy of your product, like Clément said this morning, just think about being a little bit more inclusive. And if you don't want to wait for such fundamental work that we don't do every day, thankfully, you can also add some layers of sustainability in your day-to-day job. If you're a product manager or product designer, for example, you can choose to better select the users you interview for your next round of tests, that it is more representative of the diversity of society. You can sit with developers to understand how you could make this feature more frugal with data. You can add sustainability and accessibility as acceptance criteria. Take every step of your day-to-day process and see how you can make it just even a little bit more responsibly. And if you are a product leader, I have one request for you. I urge you to make room for your team to be more responsible, to ask questions, to take a little bit more time to assess the social impact a feature could have, as you would do if it was needed to assess the business impact. Invite responsibility at the COMEX table. If you hire for your team, hire people who are more diverse, because we will better understand our users if we represent them better. Because no matter where you are in the hierarchy, you have duties. You have to challenge product decisions when they don't feel respectful of the user or the society. This is not even an option. You have to do it. Because if you don't, nobody will. Today, I wanted to take you on a journey through the deep and crucial role of responsibility in our job. We started on what it means to be responsible. And no, it doesn't just mean delivering on time, within budget, and aligned with business goals. It is about realizing the broader consequences our product can have on society. And remember here that when we choose to ignore or minimize the potential harm our product can have, we are not only risking business failure, we can create societal damage. Then we talked about our current challenges, and how the drive for profit often overshadows ethical considerations. Yet, I tried to show you, and I hope I did it, that responsibility can at some point be a competitive advantage, and it can transform challenges into opportunities for growth and innovation. And then I tried to be nice on this one. I hope you won't hate me after that, but I asked you to actually turn inward and face your own responsibility, our responsibility collectively as product people. Integrating ethics and responsibility in your day-to-day job contributes to largest change. As this talk comes to an end, I want you to carry forward the understanding that every product we design, every feature we develop, every user interaction we facilitate carries with it the weight of responsibility. Our actions have the power to influence products and reshape societies. I really hope you won't shy away from this responsibility. Thank you.